the called into office, and he allowed sons to of his predecessor. Allow elderly, my elders who are here. Old age has a tendency sometimes of softening us too much. We get tired. And when God is expecting the gray heads amongst his people to you loosen up, and the people of God suffer as a consequence. That more so that is the first part, that it's very for us as those who are called into leadership to that we do children of God unduly. Am I unduly? Point. Because in the history of Moses and time, there are the church is not relevant anymore. All is new. Not is old. Become attractive. Excuse that they may find. You may it you go, he matter you fortunately enough about how it has one of the most, it's one of the structured organizations that I, especially as far as churches are concerned, we not use, because we're supposed to be people of the book, do not read things, we don't read the Bible, prophecy, let alone the church manual. We don't know the processes that are in place. All of the way. Of saying that, no, because this leader is doing this and that, to look in the way things, and then you depart from the ways of God. God does not accept that as he does not receive that as an acceptable excuse. Amen? Amen. It was wrong. When they said, this is not about you. It's not you in us. They have rejected me. People, since the times of Egypt, I delivered them from Egypt. I took them through the Red Sea, the wilderness for 40 years, that they do not become destroyed. I promised the middle. Show. But time and time again, they have turned away from me. And in this pronouncement that they have now made, they actively and say as a leader. It's give. Hey, beloved, there is something that is very scary when God says, don't do this, and then you say you want it, and then God says, okay, fine, have it. It's a scary way. I was raised by a very strict mother. She. What is the proper? She beat me. There's this African word that I was looking for, but I'm not sure if it's a proper word to use. She starts with an M, if you're wondering. She is not proper, right? Yeah, I thought so. I was like, hey, I'm not sure if this desk. she a very man, and this woman. I remember this one time when I done something, and then she was like, okay. I was running around saying, you're like crying, literally, with like my hands on my head. So, no, high vibe. And then she said, if you keep on being stupid, you will keep on being beaten. In my older age. Now, of course, there are certain things that I would think, no, that was too harsh. I wouldn't, that's a bit too much. But I would take a strict parent who allows me to do whatever I want. Time. We know this as children. When I'm so tired of you that you do something, look at you and just leave you as you are. I must to the next level now. When they say, you know what, I'm tired, do whatever you want. Sometimes it's actually more. These people, for centuries at this point in time, Samuel, give it to them. But look at how much stubborn and how much they had been influenced by the external world. I cannot emphasize this enough. If we do not guard ourselves in terms of how the world influences us, it you are. You will actually think that you are enlightened. Darkness. It's a scary thing. Anyways, let me not get too much into. So, God them what they want. He says, but warn them. Will do to them. And then God begins to list. He's just listing the temporal things, by the way, primarily. They will take your field. They will take. But if you are the Hebrew culture, children generally would spend a significant amount of time expanding a man's household. Am I making sense? Like, for the lack of a better word, your children were kind of like part of your assets. Like they were of the family, how it was. So them to build what sons, and they will take a daughter. He was saying, you for is going much. You think the grass is not as greener as you think it actually is. But what was our opening verse? Nevertheless, they said to Samuel, no, give us a king so that we can be like the other nations, so that they can go and fight our, etc., etc., as though the king were parted the Red Sea and destroyed, which was what means of the time. All of these things. All is incapable. They need a king. So God allows them. The consequences of it, them receiving kings, were not limited to these things that God listed. A couple later, kings would rise. In fact, over the centuries, kings would rise, they would fall. Rise, they would fall. There would be righteous kings, there would be unrighteous kings. Righteous kings, unrighteous, righteous king. And as this would happen, the spirituality of Israel tended to follow the king. The spirituality, they would rise and they would fall with the king. But something happened. Time went on. Of these kings that they asked for, there was not one that was purely like this, up, down, up, down. It was actually up, down, but go down. Name of Manasseh took the throne. When Manasseh became king, he caused Israel to sin so. Sacrifices of people, idols, left, right, and center. He offended God so much that God passed judgment, not just on the king, but on the people who had wanted the king. That the thing that I will cause to happen to Israel and Judah is going to be so severe that when people hear about it, their ears will itch. And of course, we know he was speaking about him sending the Babylonians. And the Babylonians came, destroyed Jerusalem, took the children of Israel as captives. And since that destruction, do you know how much Israel's history changed from it? You should start. Jesus came, for example. Do you know that many of the Israelites were not Hebrew? Do you know that? And by Hebrew is that the scriptures were written in Hebrew. Their Bible was in Hebrew, primarily. They lost their sense of being, they lost their sense of language, and even when God had allowed them to be restored, they all wanted a king so that they could be like other nations. Amen? Do you ever wonder why it is as Seventh-day Adventists we are not a growing church? You know, right? By contrast, I remember when I was here last year and we were saying testimonies to the church, volume 3. If you're not attending those spirit of prophecy things that are being conducted in your church, I advise you to attend them. Amen? Hello? Amen. That was not very promising. You let attend them, study the testimonies, because they teach us so much. The testimonies, and in particular volume 3, and you read about the intent with which that generation evangelized. It's unheard of. We are sitting here, I remember I said this then, and I'll say it again. In the southern parts of this globe, because that Adventists,